It was supposed to be just another quiet morning in suburban Dayton, Ohio, in the year 2012. But instead, it marked the beginning of a dark and twisted story of betrayal, obsession, and murder. Firefighter Daniel Grayson, a decorated hero, had no idea that his affair with his wife's sister, Sarah Reed, would ignite a chain of events leading to a gruesome discovery, a psychopathic stalker, and a case that left the nation stunned. In the summer of 2012, Daniel Grayson appeared to have everything one could hope for: a career as a firefighter that made him a local hero, a loving wife, Emily, and two bright children, Ellie and Luke. The Grayson family lived in a modest but cozy home in Dayton, Ohio. Their house sat on a quiet street lined with neatly trimmed lawns and mailboxes that bore the names of close-knit neighbors who had watched the family grow over the years. Daniel, at 38 years old, was tall and strong, his build a testament to years of physically demanding work. But beneath his calm and composed exterior, he carried a deep emotional vulnerability. As a firefighter, Daniel had witnessed countless tragedies: burning homes, life-threatening rescues, and the grief of people who had lost loved ones. While he was hailed as a hero by the community, he rarely spoke about the emotional toll his job took on him. At home, he was a loving father and husband, but he often found himself mentally distant, weighed down by the memories of lives he couldn't save. Emily, 2 years younger than Daniel, was the bedrock of the Grayson household. As a nurse at a local hospital, she worked long hours, yet never failed to ensure the family had dinner together or the children made it to school on time. She had a warmth that made her beloved by patients and colleagues alike. Her dark brown hair, always neatly tied back, framed a face that often looked tired but carried an undeniable strength. Emily was the type of person who gave more than she ever took, always putting her family's needs before her own. Their daughter Ellie, 13 years old, was in her first year of middle school. She was quiet but sharp, a voracious reader who loved science and dreamed of becoming an engineer. Luke, at 10, was her opposite, boisterous and energetic, with a love for soccer and video games. The siblings had their fair share of squabbles, but were fiercely protective of each other. It was into this seemingly idyllic family that Sarah Reed entered. Emily's younger sister, Sarah, was everything Emily was not: spontaneous, carefree, and flirtatious. Sarah, 32 years old, had recently divorced her husband of 6 years and moved in with the Graysons in the early March 2012. She had no children of her own, and, after her divorce, was left with little more than a box of belongings and the weight of a failed marriage. Sarah brought an energy to the household that initially seemed refreshing. She was fun and outgoing, quick to make the children laugh and bring lightheartedness to the family's otherwise routine life. But beneath her playful demeanor was a woman grappling with insecurity and loneliness. She felt overshadowed by Emily, who seemed to have everything: a stable marriage, a career, and a loving family. Sarah's carefree attitude masked her deep resentment and longing for what her sister had. It began innocently enough. Daniel and Sarah would cross paths during quiet moments at home, exchanging casual conversations about life and work. Daniel found Sarah easy to talk to in a way he didn't with Emily, whose exhaustion from juggling work and parenting often left little room for emotional connection. Sarah, in turn, was drawn to Daniel's quiet strength and the sense of security he exuded. By May 2012, their conversations had grown longer. While Emily worked double shifts at the hospital, Daniel and Sarah found themselves spending more time together. Late at night, after the children had gone to bed, they would sit on the back porch, the warm glow of the patio lights casting long shadows. Sarah often asked about Daniel's experiences as a firefighter, and he shared stories he had never told anyone else. He talked about the fires, the lives he had saved, and the guilt he carried for the ones he couldn't. Sarah listened intently, her admiration for him growing with each story. What began as an emotional connection soon turned physical. By June, their late-night conversations had turned into lingering touches and stolen glances. They both knew it was wrong, but they rationalized it in their minds. Daniel felt unappreciated and unseen in his marriage, while Sarah craved the affection and validation she hadn't found in her failed relationships. They promised themselves it would only happen once, but it didn't. The affair quickly became a regular occurrence, hidden beneath the veneer of family harmony. Sarah's behavior began to change. She started leaving subtle but deliberate signs of their affair around the house. In mid-July, Daniel noticed a pair of Sarah's earrings left conspicuously on his nightstand. She began texting him at odd hours, sometimes sending cryptic messages like, "Thinking of you tonight," while Emily was just feet away. Daniel would delete the messages immediately, but the anxiety of being caught gnawed at him. Emily, ever perceptive, began to notice the growing tension. Sarah's flirtatious comments toward Daniel at family dinners seemed less playful and more pointed. One evening in late July, Emily found Sarah's perfume lingering on Daniel's work shirt and dismissed it as an accident. She wanted to trust her husband, to believe that her sister would never betray her. But the doubt had been planted, and it began to grow. The breaking point came in early August 2012, when Sarah confronted Daniel late at night in the kitchen. She was no longer content to be the other woman in his life. She demanded he leave Emily and the children to be with her. Her tone was desperate, her eyes wild with emotion. Daniel, panicked, tried to calm her, insisting that he couldn't abandon his family. The argument was heated, and though no one else in the house heard it, the aftermath was clear. Sarah's behavior became erratic. She began to threaten Daniel, telling him she would reveal everything if he didn't end his marriage. Daniel ended the affair that night, but Sarah, devastated and consumed by obsession, wasn't ready to let go. Unbeknownst to Daniel, his decision would mark the beginning of a spiral into chaos, one that would soon unravel the lives of everyone in the Grayson household. When Daniel Grayson ended the affair with Sarah Reed in August 2012, he believed it was over. He thought he could pick up the pieces of his life and repair his marriage with Emily, but he underestimated the depth of Sarah's obsession. For Sarah, losing Daniel wasn't just a heartbreak. It was a rejection that fractured her already fragile sense of self. The same energy she once channeled into seducing Daniel turned into a relentless fixation. Her life began to revolve around a single, twisted goal: making Daniel hers at any cost. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. In September 2012, Daniel noticed the unsettling feeling of being watched. He would catch glimpses of Sarah's car in his rearview mirror during his commute. At the firehouse, he he began receiving anonymous letters in his locker, short notes written in a feminine hand. At first they were harmless, containing cryptic lines about missed chances or unfulfilled love. But as the weeks passed, the tone shifted. The notes became darker, threatening, and explicit. At home, Emily began to sense a change in Daniel. He was jumpy, distracted, and irritable, traits that were out of character for her steady husband. Emily attributed it to the stress of his demanding job. She had no idea that the real cause was Sarah, who was now stalking both of them. By the October 2012, Sarah's behavior escalated. She began sending anonymous voicemails to their home phone late at night. The messages ranged from heavy breathing to cryptic, veiled threats. Daniel, recognizing Sarah's voice, deleted them before Emily could hear, desperate to keep the affair and Sarah's unraveling from his wife. He didn't know that Sarah had already moved to a new level of intrusion, breaking into their home. In the mid-November 2012, Emily returned home from a late shift at the hospital and immediately felt uneasy. The living room rug was crooked. A picture frame on the mantel had been turned backward, and the scent of Sarah's floral perfume lingered faintly in the air. Emily dismissed these details as her own exhaustion playing tricks on her. Sarah, however, had been there, walking through the house in the dead of night, touching the possessions of the family she longed to destroy. Sarah's obsession with Emily was as intense as her fixation on Daniel. She didn't see Emily as just an obstacle. She viewed her as a usurper, someone unworthy of the life Sarah believed should have been hers. This hatred drove her to more audacious acts. In early December 2012, Daniel's car was vandalized while parked at the fire station. Bright red paint spelled out the words, "You can't escape me," on the hood. His co-workers joked about a crazy ex, but had no idea how close to the truth they were. Daniel scrubbed the paint off himself, refusing to file a report out of fear it would expose the affair. While Daniel tried to shield Emily from Sarah's actions, Sarah had her own plans for Emily. She began crafting a campaign of psychological warfare. By January 2013, Emily started receiving mail, printed photos of Daniel with another woman, fake receipts from hotels, and fabricated text messages. Sarah's goal was clear: to dismantle Emily's trust in her husband. For weeks, Emily wrestled with the possibility that Daniel was unfaithful, though she couldn't bring herself to confront him without proof. The strain on their marriage deepened. Sarah's boldest move came at the end of January 2013, when she followed Emily to the hospital where she worked. Emily didn't notice Sarah in the parking lot, watching from the shadow of her car. Sarah's presence at Emily's workplace wasn't an accident. It was a calculated act of control. She wanted to invade every corner of Emily's life, leaving no space untouched by her influence. On the night of February 10th, 2013, the Grayson household was quiet. Emily, exhausted after her evening shift, had come home early, a rare break from her demanding schedule. Ellie was at a friend's house for a sleepover, and Luke had fallen asleep watching television. Daniel was still at work, covering an overnight shift at the fire station. Sometime after 9 p.m., Sarah entered the house. She had been watching from her car, waiting for the right moment. With her knowledge of the Grayson family's routines, she knew Emily would be alone. Her presence that night wasn't impulsive, it was planned. The knife she brought with her was tucked into her coat pocket, its cold weight a reflection of her chilling resolve. Emily had no warning. She was in the living room, likely reviewing a stack of patient notes from her shift, when Sarah attacked. The violence was swift and overwhelming. Sarah's rage, pent up for months, exploded in the brutal act. Emily tried to fight back, but the force of the attack left her defenseless. The first stab wound struck her shoulder, the second, her chest. By the time it was over, she had been stabbed over a dozen times. The once pristine living room was now a gruesome crime scene. Blood soaked the beige carpet, spattered the furniture, and painted the walls in chaotic streaks. Sarah left a final message for Daniel. Using Emily's blood, she scrawled on the wall above her lifeless body, "She didn't deserve you." Then she vanished into the night, leaving the murder weapon behind. Ellie returned home at the 10:30 p.m. from her sleepover, expecting to find her mother waiting up for her. Instead, she was met with a scene of horror. The teenager's piercing scream alerted the neighbors, who called 911. Within minutes, the Grayson home was swarming with emergency responders. Paramedics arrived, but it was too late. Emily was declared dead at the scene. Detectives from the Dayton Police Department quickly took charge of the investigation. The house was cordoned off, and the forensics team began documenting every detail of the brutal crime. They photographed the blood patterns, collected fingerprints, and secured the knife as evidence. The chilling message on the wall hinted at a deeply personal motive, and investigators immediately turned their attention to Daniel. News of Emily's murder spread quickly, leaving the community in shock. She was remembered as a compassionate nurse and devoted mother. The idea that such violence could happen to someone so kind and selfless was incomprehensible. As neighbors lit candles on the Grayson lawn, a darker truth began to surface, one that would unravel the twisted web Sarah had woven and expose the true extent of her obsession. The call to investigate the brutal murder of Emily Grayson came to Detective Laura Hayes on the morning of February 11th, 2013. Hayes was known as a meticulous investigator, with 18 years on the force and a reputation for uncovering the truth, no matter how deeply it was buried. Her calm demeanor and sharp intuition made her the ideal person to handle such a high-profile and emotionally charged case. But as she walked into the Grayson home for the first time, she realized this was no ordinary crime scene. The sight inside was harrowing. Bloodstains told a story of violence and chaos. The chilling message scrawled in Emily's blood above her body, "She didn't deserve you," was a haunting clue, one that Hayes believed could unlock the killer's motive. It was clear this was a crime of passion, deeply personal and rooted in betrayal. Initially, suspicion fell on Daniel Grayson. Neighbors whispered about the distance between him and Emily in recent months, and friends confirmed that Emily had confided in them about her growing concerns over Daniel's behavior. But Daniel's solid alibi, that he was on duty at the fire station during the time of the murder, left the investigators searching for another lead. Hayes was determined to dig deeper, convinced that the message on the wall wasn't random, but deliberate. By February 12th, 2013, the detectives began piecing together Emily's life and relationships. They interviewed co-workers, neighbors, and close friends, slowly unraveling a picture of a woman who had been deeply loved by her family, but haunted by invisible cracks in her marriage. Emily's kindness and dedication to her job made her adored by all who knew her, which made the brutality of her death even harder to understand. Hayes's breakthrough came when she interviewed a neighbor who lived 2 houses down. The neighbor mentioned seeing Sarah Reed's car, parked near the Grayson home multiple times in the weeks leading up to the murder. This detail, combined with Daniel's history with Sarah, shifted the investigation's focus. Hayes requested surveillance footage from nearby homes and businesses. By February 13, 2013, the footage revealed Sarah's car driving past the Grayson home the night of the murder, circling the block repeatedly before disappearing near the house. What followed was a flood of damning evidence. Sarah's phone records showed a series of anonymous voicemails sent to the Grayson home in the months prior. Text messages retrieved from Sarah's phone were even more incriminating, detailing her obsession with Daniel and her hatred for Emily. Hayes's team also uncovered fingerprints matching Sarah's on the knife used to kill Emily, as well as traces of her DNA in the Grayson living room. The most chilling discovery came on February 14, 2013, when investigators searched Sarah's apartment. Tucked inside her closet was a journal, its pages filled with unfiltered thoughts that revealed her descent into madness. The entries chronicled her affair with Daniel, her anger at Emily, and her twisted fantasies of taking Emily's place in the Grayson family. Phrases like, "If Emily wasn't here, everything would be perfect," and "Daniel belongs to me, not her," painted a disturbing picture of Sarah's mindset. As Hayes read through the journal, it became clear that Sarah had planned the murder for months. One entry detailed her frustration with Daniel's rejection, while another outlined her plan to confront Emily the night of the murder. The journal, paired with the physical evidence and surveillance footage, solidified Sarah as the prime suspect. On February 15, 2013, Sarah was arrested at her apartment. She appeared disheveled, her once confident and vibrant demeanor replaced by fear and defiance. The arrest made headlines across Dayton, shocking the community. Sarah, once seen as a victim of heartbreak, was now revealed as a cold-blooded killer. The trial began on May 1, 2013, in a packed courtroom. The media descended upon Dayton, dubbing Sarah Reed the Sister in Shadows. The nickname encapsulated the betrayal that had shocked the nation. A woman murdering her own sister to steal her life. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Claire Simmons, built a devastating case against Sarah. Simmons was methodical, painting a picture of Sarah as a woman consumed by jealousy and rejection. She presented the journal as the centerpiece of the evidence, reading aloud the most incriminating passages. Each word deepened the public's understanding of Sarah's obsession and her capacity for violence. Simmons also introduced the surveillance footage and forensic evidence, which left little room for doubt. She emphasized Sarah's meticulous planning, highlighting the anonymous threats, vandalism, and fabricated evidence Sarah had used to destabilize Emily's marriage before ultimately killing her. By the time Simmons rested her case, the jury appeared visibly shaken. The defense, led by attorney Martin Vance, argued that Sarah was mentally ill, portraying her as a fragile woman who had been pushed to the edge. Vance described her failed marriage, her feelings of abandonment, and her desperate attempts to find love and acceptance. He claimed that the journal entries were not evidence of premeditation, but the ramblings of a deeply disturbed mind. Despite these efforts, the prosecution's evidence was overwhelming. Witnesses testified about Sarah's erratic behavior, including the neighbor who saw her car near the Grayson home and a former co-worker who described Sarah as obsessed with Daniel. The journal, forensic evidence, and surveillance footage painted a chillingly clear picture of Sarah's actions. As the trial progressed, the emotional toll on the Grayson family became evident. Daniel, now a single father, sat in the courtroom every day, his face a mask of grief and guilt. Ellie, just 14 years old, often clutched her father's hand, her eyes filled with tears as she listened to the details of her mother's murder. Luke, too young to fully grasp the trial's gravity, was shielded from the proceedings, but remained a constant reminder of what had been lost. On the June 20th, 2013, after 3 days of deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict. Sarah Reed was found guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read, except for a muffled sob from Daniel. Sarah showed no emotion, her face pale and expressionless, as the weight of her actions finally caught up to her. The sentencing hearing on July 2nd, 2013, brought a sense of finality. Sarah was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge described her crime as a heinous act born of selfishness and obsession, words that would echo in the minds of those who had followed the case. The trial left a lasting scar on the community. Emily's friends and co-workers mourned her loss, remembering her as a kind, selfless woman who had touched countless lives. The Grayson children struggled to adjust to a life without their mother, while Daniel carried the weight of guilt and regret. The story of Sarah Reed became a cautionary tale, a chilling reminder of how unchecked obsession can spiral into tragedy. The Grayson family, though broken, remained a symbol of resilience, slowly rebuilding their lives in the shadow of a loss they would never forget. Daniel, racked with guilt, left the fire department and moved away with his children, seeking a fresh start. The Grayson family home, once filled with laughter, became a haunting reminder of betrayal and loss. The story became a cautionary tale of how secrets and obsession can destroy lives, leaving a community forever scarred. Make sure to check out our other cases. A good one will be the case where a wife takes revenge on cheating husband while she was in chemo. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you do not miss out on our daily updates.